Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to do an in-depth guide of Sushang. I highly recommend everyone get her. She can be used in two different ways. The first way you can use her is a physical breaker, and the second way you can use her is a DPS unit because she has a very high damage output. But even with little investment, you can still use her very effectively as a breaker. If you have other physical DPS units like Clara, I still think it's worth investing into Sushang because her physical breaking ability is unparalleled, basically. So let me give you a little bit of how I used her. In the beginning, I only had Sealy as my main DPS, so I started using Sushang as my second DPS, and I had invested into her and built up her attack. And then eventually, when I got Jingyuan, I moved over most of my better relics onto him, and Sushang therefore has much lower attack. But she is still very crucial in a lot of my compositions when I'm doing the Memory of Chaos because I still need her physical breaking abilities. So let's go into her skills and I'll tell you why her physical breaking is so good. So her normal skill does damage, it does 147% of damage, and then additionally she gets a second chance to do more damage. It's only 33% base, but it goes up to 100% of the enemy's weakness broken. So if you are using Sushang to break the weakness of bosses, you probably actually want to use this skill when the enemy is not broken. Like, you're not using her for damage, you're actually using her to bring that white bar down. So I've seen a lot of guides where they're talking about, you should save the skill to attack the boss when the weakness is broken. But if you're actually bringing this unit to break the enemy's weakness, you should use this, when it's not broken. And the ultimate, which does even more damage, 256% of damage, as soon as you use the ultimate, she actually gets a second chance to go right away. So a lot of times when I'm using other characters, I want to use ultimates, whenever I can. I don't need to wait for the unit to take a turn. But with Sushang, the best way to use Sushang is to actually use her skill, like when her turn comes up, use her skill, use her ultimate right away, and then she gets a second chance to go. So you can basically use the skill, ultimate, and then the skill again, which means you get 3 attacks and they all break physical weaknesses. So you can see that she actually has in a short amount of turns, she's able to break an enemy's weakness by a lot. So even if you don't build her very well, even if you have lower attack, you can still bring her along to break enemies' weaknesses. And in that case, you might even think about putting more defensive stats on her because you're not really looking for the attacking kind of stats. If you are thinking of using her as a main DPS, then after she uses her ultimate, every time she uses a skill for the next 2 turns, she gets to trigger her secondary attack, the sword stance, 2 more additional times, right? And if the enemy is broken, that means all these additional attacks are guaranteed. So if you are bringing her as a DPS, not just to break the enemy, and in that case you can even bring her where the enemy is not weak to physical, because you can have other units break enemies' weaknesses. And then after you use the ultimate and the skill, she does significant amount of damage. She does a huge amount of damage, which was the reason why I used her as my main DPS, my secondary main DPS, until Jingyuan came along. So that's what I wanted to say. Like, you can bring her to be a physical breaking unit. She does that really well, but she also does a lot of damage as well because of the way her skill and ultimate are interact. She's able to do a lot of damage. Right now, you have a banner where you're likely to draw her. I actually went for this banner to try to get Jingyuan, and I ended up maxing out Sushang. The other two, I was not as lucky with my other 2 units. As you can see, like, my Sushang is maxed. I got 6 copies of her. But my other 2, I only have 2 copies and 2 copies. No, actually, 3 copies. So I was very I guess maybe lucky with a lot of Shushang's copies, but I really want to stress that getting the first copy of Shushang is really worth it. Like the first one gives you a huge advantage because she's able to use her skills often. Like she's able to, as I said, use her skill, the ultimate, and then skill. So when her turn comes up and the ultimate is ready to go, you really want to save at least 2 skill points, right? Um, so she's very skill point intensive. However, if you have her first copy, whenever the enemy is weakness broken, you actually regenerate a skill point when you're using the skill. So that means even if you just have 1 skill point, you can basically keep using the skill over and over as long as the enemy is weakness broken, and you get the skill point back. So that, I think that actually is probably the most important skill that she has from everything else here. I think it's well worth it. Like if you already have her and you're thinking about the banner and you're wondering maybe I should summon on this, or is she worth it? How many copies of her I need? The first one I think is insane. I think if you are able to afford pulling on this banner to get copies of her, at least try to get the first copy, because that first copy gives you a huge boost. The other, I mean, everything else is nice to have, but it's not as important as the first one, in my opinion. I mean, I pulled her, I kept pulling her over and over, so obviously I maxed her out. But I wasn't aiming for it. I would have been really happy if I just got the first copy and that was it. Now let's just keep going into her other skills and talents to just cover this off. So her talent gives her additional speed whenever there is a weakness broken enemy on the field. This starts off at 15%, and as you level it up, it goes up. This is pretty good because you want her to go often. Either way, if you're bringing her to break the enemy, or even if you're bringing her as main DPS, you want her to take as many turns as possible. And if you have, as I said, the first copy of her, even if she's taking a lot of turns, you are hopefully not as skill point intensive. So I feel like this is a very good skill to have, and with extra copies, you're actually able to stack it twice. With the 6th copy, you're able to stack it twice, and she also gets 1 stack of this talent as soon as she enters the field. Her technique, it's basically just attacking everybody to deal 80% physical damage to all enemies. There's nothing too special. Usually, if you're attacking an enemy, there are better techniques to use than this one, but it's not too bad. It's an additional damage dealer. I mean, yeah. So I think one of the best ways to show her off is to actually show her in battle. So I'm going to do 2 battles. The first one where I am using her as a primary weakness breaker. And in the second battle, I'm going to show her as a DPS. I'm still going to use the same stats. I'm not changing her relics around, but just to show how the battle would kind of go. So I'm going to use Forgotten Hall 3 for this, because the first boss is weak to physical and the second boss is not. So I think that's a good place to show. So the team that I'm going to use is going to be that, and maybe a healer. Hey, let me just check. Okay, DPS, yeah. I can't decide. Because I don't want to be putting too much damage. I don't want Sealy to overshadow Sushang, so I think that's a better team to go. Alright, so this is the boss that is weak to physical, which is what I'm going to start with. So I'm just going to put this technique on. Alright. So I want to take as many turns with Sushang as possible. So I am looking to get her ultimate off right away. So I'm going to use this to increase her ultimate, and you can see easily how how much she's gonna break the enemy's bar at the top. Okay, so check it out. And this is just one turn, but she almost broke the enemy's weakness bar almost all by herself within one turn. So this is why I say that she is a phenomenal unit to bring along. Even if you have another physical DPS already, like Clara, I think that it's good to bring Sushang along just as the the breaker, because she does so much. And in a minute, like after I'm out of this battle, I'm going to show you the Memory of Chaos 6, and you can see why you might appreciate bringing more than one of physical breaker or something. But yeah, just see how well she does, like how much damage output she has, and how her capabilities are. And something I really like about this, what is called the Memory of Chaos, if you're bringing just one hunt, or I don't know how to say the AoE characters, they always go first. So right now on the 39th turn, she gets a damage boost, and she gets to take a second turn right away again. If I had even more skill points, I would be able to use her skill twice, right? Like, I mean, right now the boss is not weakness broken, so I'm not going to be able to do that. And I'm going to go, when she gets a boost, I'm going to use that instead. See, because if I'd used the skill last turn, I wouldn't have any skill points left to use the skill now. So that's why I kind of saved it. But yeah, I hope this gives you a pretty good idea of the capabilities of her. I'm probably going to be able to weakness break this boss a second time fairly easily, I think. There you go, and he's broken again. So on the 40th turn, I already weakness broke the boss, and now on the 39th turn, I weakness broke it again. And now you can see how, I mean, I only have one skill point left, but if I use this, I regenerate that skill point. So you can see how effective she is as a breaker. So that's the reason why I highly recommend people think about investing in her. And she still regenerates that, and she did a lot of damage. She did like 11,000 damage, right? And she only has 2k attack. 2k attack is on the lower side when I'm doing the Memory of Chaos. Like my Jingyuan has 3k attack, and my Seele has 2.7k attack. So I think she has 2.3k, which is, as I said, on the lower side. Now I'm just going to try to beat this boss quickly so I can show you how to use her when she is not your, the boss is not weak to physical. And it's not a bad idea when the boss is almost defeated to save your ultimates for the next fight in the Memory of Chaos. So if I get a chance, that's what I'm going to do. People have different reactions to her ultimate. Some people like the chicken, some people hate it. I don't know. I mean, I'm of the opinion that if it was something nicer, I would have liked it more. But it is kind of funny just bringing a giant chicken into the fold out of nowhere. So I'm just going to. I don't want to waste turns. So I have 4 units left to take a turn. I'm going to try to use different skills to. Well, I don't really have a choice here. It's probably going to die. But I was trying to basically build up as much of my energy as I can for the next boss. So here, I have 2 techniques left, so I might as well give myself a shield and use that. Okay, so here, this boss is not weak to physical. So I want to ideally use this whenever the boss has the boss is broken. That's when I want to maximize the damage of Sushang. That's what I'm going to do. So what can I do here? So I'm going to use my other units to try to weakness break it as much as possible. So instead of using Tingyun's skill to increase Sushang's attack, I'm going to actually try to break the boss instead. Here, you might, you can consider if you want to actually bring the boss's HP down, or if you want to kill the minions, because right now, since the minions are broken, Sushang will do extra damage to them, and she will also keep the skill point. She will not lose the skill point. So if you're not bringing AoE characters, like for example Seeley, because Seeley can easily defeat the minions and then the boss, or Jing Yuan as well, because he does a lot of AoE damage. If you're bringing her, maybe it's worth it to use this skill on the minions instead of the boss. It's up to you. I mean, yeah, I mean, some of these fights you have to do a few times to see which way you want to go, which is better. If you're wondering why I'm saving the ultimate from my March 7th, that's because I'm waiting for the other 2 minions to recover from their brokenness before I use the skill. So you'll see what I mean. So I'm not using the skill because I'm waiting for the boss to be weakness broken by somebody else before I use it. Okay, so it's close. Okay, so the boss is weakness broken now, and when Sushang gets her turn, that's when I'm going to use her skill first, and then I'm going to use her ultimate. And you'll see how much damage she does in basically a short amount of time. And because the boss is weakness broken already, I don't need to use Tingyun to attack it because there's no point. She'll do a minimal amount of damage. Instead, I'm going to boost Sushang's damage. That's what I'm going to do. So let's see how much damage she can do in a fairly short amount of time. So 3.3k. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't use that before, because I want to, I knew she would get a boost here. So I'm not going to count the damage that she just did. Let's just look at how much damage she's doing now with this. So she does 5.5k, and then this ultimate, which does 8.1k, and then she gets another attack, so she does 4.4k. So that was what, 854, so about 17k damage, that she did fairly quickly. So this is what I mean. That's pretty significant, right? I think her attack was 2.3k. With kind of not without such a high attack, she's still able to put out a lot of damage output. So you can still bring her on stages where the enemies are not weak to physical, and just use her as a main damage dealer in the way that I just showed you. That's one viable way of playing her if you want to. So I hope I've given you some ideas on how you can use her. I'm going to get out of this fight now because it's probably going to be a while before I beat this, and you probably don't want to hear me blab about this. I'm going to get out of this fight. I hope I've still shown you, how you can use her and how much, what her damage output is like. I mentioned that if you have Clara or another physical DPS that, maybe somebody else comes out, is it still worth it to use her? In my opinion, yes, because just take a look at this. Once you get to Memory of Chaos 6 and above, you actually have 3 bosses. Like take a look at the first one. There's actually 3 stages. The first stage will just have these minions. The second stage will have 2. Yes, that's right. 2 of these lieutenants. One on the exact same stage that you have to beat. And finally, you also have to beat Bronya. And Bronya keeps spawning other minions to aid her in battle. So this fight is going to go a lot easier if you have physical DPS, especially to take care of this and break it. So even if you have Clara, bringing along Clara and Sushang and whatever other physical DPS that you might have is actually going to be a huge lifesaver, right? Because otherwise it is quite difficult. I mean, beating this guy alone I thought was pretty difficult, and then now you have two of them side by side attacking at the same time. So if you bring these types, if you bring like, ice, is it ice, quantum, and physical, and then you find that you only physical helps you against Bronya. She's not weak to the other two types. So bringing more of the physical types to help you with these bosses is definitely going to be helpful. So eventually, I think you don't just want to have a single unit that is one type. You want to bring multiple units of the same type. Otherwise, I mean, if this is how hard it is at 6, I really wonder how hard it's going to be at like 9 and 10. But you don't look at it and say, well, I have Clara, so I don't need to bring Sushang. I think it's still worth going for Sushang because her ability to weakness break really sets her apart. She's able to put out a lot of damage if you build her that way, but she's also able to function quite well even if you don't build her for a lot of damage. So that's it for my review. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have other questions or comments, leave me a comment below and I will do my best to get back to you. Take care now, and I hope to see you guys next time.